Welcome to today's podcast, where I'll be talking about Samuel Taylor Coleridge's famous theory of poetry, what it is, where it comes from, and why it matters. Whether you are a student of literature or simply curious about how poets think, stick around. I think you will find it really interesting. Samuel Taylor Coleridge is widely regarded as one of the greatest literary critics in English literature. His contributions to the theory of poetry, primarily found in Biographia Literaria, 1817, challenged both classical and contemporary notions of poetry. Coleridge's theory of poetry is deeply philosophical and revolves around the role of imagination, the purpose of poetry, poetic language, and the structural elements of a poem. Number 1. Purpose of poetry. Before the Romantic era, poetry was commonly believed to serve two primary functions: delight and instruction. Wordsworth, in his preface to Lyrical Ballads, argued that the purpose of poetry is to provide immediate pleasure. Coleridge partially agreed with Wordsworth, but emphasized that poetry should provide permanent pleasure, which is inseparable from truth. He believed that only what is fundamentally true can offer lasting delight. Thus, poetry is not merely entertainment, but a profound experience that engages the mind and soul. Number 2. Poetry as an act of imagination. One of Coleridge's most revolutionary ideas was his rejection of the classical notion of poetry as mere imitation, mimesis. Aristotle had defined poetry as an imitation of life, but Coleridge argued that poetry is not a passive reproduction of reality. It is a product of the poet's imagination. He divided imagination into two types. Primary imagination. This is the universal human faculty of perception, through which individuals receive sensory impressions from the external world. It is an involuntary, automatic process that allows people to understand their surroundings. Secondary imagination. This is unique to poets and artists. Unlike primary imagination, which passively receives sensory data, secondary imagination actively reshapes and transforms these impressions. It is a creative synthetic force that dissolves and reconstructs reality to produce something entirely new. Coleridge's concept of imagination marks a departure from Wordsworth's belief in poetry as the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. Instead, Coleridge views poetry as a conscious, intellectual process in which the poet actively shapes and orders raw experience into artistic form. Coleridge, however, refuted this idea on the following grounds. Language varies among individuals. No single common language exists. People's vocabulary and speech patterns differ based on their education, intelligence, emotions, and environment. Poetic language is shaped by the poet's emotions and imagination. Coleridge argued that the poet's choice of words should be determined by the mood, theme, and rhythm of the poem rather than by an artificial attempt to replicate rustic speech. The language of poetry is inherently different from prose. In poetry, the order of words plays a crucial role in creating rhythm and emotional impact. Prose lacks this structured harmony, making it fundamentally different from poetry. Number 4. Rhyme, meter, and organic unity in poetry. Coleridge also opposed Wordsworth's view that meter and rhyme are merely decorative additions to poetry. Wordsworth believed that poetry and prose differ only in rhythm and that meter is an external element that adds pleasure. Coleridge, on the other hand, argued that r- rhyme and meter are integral to poetry and cannot be separated from its essence. He maintained that a true poem has organic unity, meaning its form and content must be perfectly harmonious. The structure, including rhyme and meter, should not be arbitrarily imposed but should grow naturally from the poet's vision. Poetic pleasure is unique and cannot be compared to the pleasure derived from prose. The rhythm and sound patterns of poetry contribute to this distinctive aesthetic experience. The arrangement of words in a poem is deliberate, and the metrical pattern enhances both meaning and emotional depth. Number 5. Suspension of disbelief and supernatural elements. Coleridge is famous for introducing the idea of the willing suspension of disbelief in poetry. He believed that poetry, especially supernatural poetry, should be written in such a way that readers temporarily accept the impossible as real. For example, in the rhyme of the ancient Mariner, Coleridge presents supernatural characters and events, yet the poem remains believable because of the poet's skill in storytelling and emotional engagement. This principle became a defining feature of Romantic literature. Number 6. Coleridge's poetry as a reflection of his theory. Coleridge's own poetry reflects his critical principles. His works, such as Kubla Khan and The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, demonstrate the use of secondary imagination to create dreamlike and supernatural imagery. A unique poetic language, distinct from everyday speech but deeply expressive. The organic unity of form and content, where meter, rhyme, and theme work together seamlessly. Coleridge did not present his theory of poetry in a single structured document, but his ideas, scattered throughout Biographia Literaria, remain some of the most influential contributions to literary criticism. Unlike Wordsworth, who emphasized emotion and simplicity, Coleridge viewed poetry as a complex imaginative process that transforms reality into art. His insights into imagination, poetic language, organic unity, and the suspension of disbelief continue to shape modern discussions on the nature of poetry. I hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. Stay tuned for more. Until next time, take care.